Neil, we're here in Croke Park for the Tailteann Cup semi-finals. Two good games, two very different games. The first one, Meath and Antrim, and the first one 216 to 214. In the end, Meath got that 2-point win. Just about, because Antrim, they definitely fought back in the end. What did you make of the game?
Yeah, great fight back from Antrim. You know, with 10 minutes left, you were thinking probably Meath are going into the Tailteann Cup final here. Have they been tested? You know, they had a pretty comfortable win over Wexford last weekend. They were reasonably comfortable for the first 20 minutes of the first half today. Then Paddy McBride got a goal for Antrim, brought it back to 2 points. Antrim had a chance just after that, straight from the kick out in fact, to bring it back to a point. It would have been an easy point if they popped it over. Went for the juggler, tried to manufacture a goal, chance got turned over. But yeah, Meath were just able to tag on a few scores at the end as Antrim kind of went for broke. Antrim were going for a goal you know, in the last few minutes of the game. They ended up getting a point to bring it back to a 2-point game. But yeah, it was a funny sort of a game. Antrim took off. They were very impressive in the first half, or the first quarter, I suppose. You know, they really used their pace. Mark Jordan, wing back, very impressive. Even unfortunately for them, their captain Peter Healy, he was carrying a lot of ball from the back as well. He had to go off injured. But the game plan, or the tactics that Antrim were using, were heavily reliant on that pace and using their legs to carry the ball. And I think, you know, even into the second half, maybe that came against them. Meath were able to get on top. They just had a little bit more physicality. They looked like a team, a few bigger men around the middle. I think in those 10 minutes after half time, there was a triangle there in the middle of the field. Conor Gray, Jack Lynn, Porrick Harnan, you know, just really big physical men. As Antrim, the legs started to tire a little bit, and they carried that ball into the middle channel, the heart of that Meath defence. Those three guys got some huge turnovers, allowed Meath to counter-attack, and from one of those turnovers they fed a long ball into Jordan Morris inside. You know, he showed great composure to go around the keeper, and that for what was probably the game defining goal, the second goal for Meath. But yeah, it was a game you thought, are Meath tested going into the final? The second game showed that Meath were a lot tested a lot more than Down were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even looking at the first half of the Meath and Antrim game, then Antrim went in a point up. At that point, we sort of turned to each other and said that Meath looked like they had the better chances. They just didn't really take them. But then they came out in that second half, or the first period of that second half, you really saw what Meath were about, I thought.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, you could probably tell it, as you say, in the first half there, Meath had the better chances, but they were also getting their chances easier. It was a little less work for them to get into the scoring zones, and you know, that told then in the second half. Just, I guess, the volume of chances they were creating, they started to convert them then, and you know, that allowed them to tag on a few points before they got the goal as well. Whereas every single score that Antrim got involved a lot of work to get them into the scoring zone. And then when Meath started to force some of those turnovers early in the second half from Antrim's running game, Antrim then resorted to trying to kick the ball in, and they forced some of those kicks, and they forced some shots from areas that, you know, they wouldn't have been shooting from in the first half. And you know, that's when the turnovers start to happen, when you're doing things that you don't necessarily want to do, or you're going a little off script. But to be fair to Antrim, they stuck right in it, you know, and they had themselves in a position where the goal that they did get with 8 minutes to go from Paddy McBride got them right back into the game. You know, they hadn't let it get away from being a 5-point game, and you know, at the 5 points, it felt like Meath were kind of ambling towards victory. But you know, Antrim didn't let it get any further than that, to be fair to them. Got the goal, and you know, we had a great, really exciting last 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think they came back from maybe 8 points at one stage to bring it back to a 1-point game. Showed great character from Antrim to do that. From a Meath perspective, I think they'll go away and wondering what happened here. They just switched off for a period. Yeah,
and it probably even just the Meath, maybe subconsciously Meath switched off. You know, they started to make a few substitutions. Maybe even some of those substitutions were some of the guys who have been pretty decent performers for them on the day, and maybe that sent the message to the team that, you know, we're in a Tailteann Cup final here. We're going to maybe look after some of these lads, and you know, that can easily kind of creep into a team, and that like switch off, or even just that psychological switch off. You could see that from the goal that Antrim got. It was a ball that came back off the post. The Antrim guys are alive to it. The Meath defenders weren't. So that's something Colin O'Rourke and his management team will definitely be looking to improve on going into the next game, because we've seen obviously in the second game how down we're able to get goals. So you can't afford to lose concentration for a minute in a game like this, especially in Croke Park. Even the weather conditions in that first game, it was very warm for the earlier throwing. The second game, there was like a heavy downpour rain. It got a little bit cooler, but maybe even that sort of weather conditions can drain a team as well that aren't used to playing at that intensity for a full 70 minutes.
And just from an Antrim point of view then, there was positives to take from it. Obviously their fight back, but they do have pacey forwards that they were exciting to watch at times, and it's not often you get to see Antrim here in Croke Park, so they will take a lot from it. I thought Dominic McEntee as well, he had a great performance today.
Yeah, he was very impressive, and he got 11 points last weekend. He was notching up the freeze again today. Very, very impressive. But I think Antrim's performance today kind of reflects Antrim's season. There's so much they can take from it. They didn't get promotion from Division 3, but if you look back at their results, they were very close in all their games bar one major blip that they had. I think they played down. A late goal defeated them in that one. Fermanagh, a late goal went against them as well. So they're a team, I think Andy McEntee can be proud of the effort that they put in today, but proud of the season that team have put in as well. And they'll definitely be looking at taking a lot from today to look at Division 3 next year. And even for Andy McEntee, talking to the lads in the dressing room after the game today, it's going to be very easy for him to get those guys bought into their off-season training. And Antrim are a county that have definitely struggled with player turnover from season to season, even within seasons over the last few years. So what Andy McEntee, crucial for him to do, the talent is in Antrim. It's about getting the best players committed to the Antrim jersey and committed. We've seen in GA over the last number of years, you need a 3-4 year foundation of conditioning to be competitive. So Andy McEntee needs to keep that group together. But even when you look at their bench today, so many youthful faces on it, young guys coming in. So leaving Croke Park, heading back up the road, I think there's going to be an atmosphere on that bus of let's get started on our S&C work for next year. Yeah, and just mentioning Andy McEntee, obviously, former Meath manager, a proud Meath man. I asked him after the game what it was like to face Meath, and he said he could have did without it, and that it helped that his son Shane wasn't playing today. He's out due to injury, so he said he doesn't have to face him really. But yeah, it's a hard thing to do, I suppose, when you've managed a team for 6 years, given a lot to them, to then face them. But I suppose it is sport at the end of the day. Yeah, I'm pretty sure when they were 3 points down there at the end, I seen Andy McEntee telling the Antrim players to kick it over the bar, never mind trying to score a goal. But it was a difficult position for Andy McEntee because, while he was the Meath manager, you could see just how passionate he was about Meath football. So many instances over the years where on the sideline you could see that passion for Meath bubbling out of him. So, he is a Meath man. First and foremost, gave everything he could to get Meath back competing with Dublin with varying degrees of success in different years. But the reason that Meath weren't competing with Dublin during them years was not Andy McEntee's fault. It was something that maybe happened at underage level 15-20 years ago. Things that were maybe done right in Dublin, not so right in Meath. So it wasn't Andy McEntee's fault that he wasn't able to get Meath back winning Leinster titles. But yeah, hugely passionate Meath man. Difficult for him today. Obviously, his son Shane not involved, but his nephew James was involved. So, I suppose, and that's what makes the GA. It's about family, and no doubt that the McEntees will have had a great family day out too, with the intrigue of having an involvement on both sides. Yeah, absolutely. And we'll look at the second game then, down in Laois. Very one-sided. Down, dominated from start to finish, really. A little bit of a bright period at the end for Laois as well, but in the end it was 8-16 to 2-12. That is some scoring in a game. It's crazy scoring, yeah. And if somebody told you coming into Croke Park today that one team was going to score 8 goals, you just wouldn't have believed them. You wouldn't have been able to pick the team that was going to score the 8 goals, and you wouldn't have believed that it could happen. But to be fair, I don't think Laois were terrible. I really think it's a reflection on just how good Down were. I was really impressed with them. There was we had some thunder and lightning in the first half today, but Down themselves were absolutely electric. They were just buzzing around the pitch. You could just see how well coached they are. The management team they have. There's the management team they have published in the programme, and there's the management team that may have some unofficial additions as well, depending on who you believe.
Who are you talking about, Neil?
Well, there's I couldn't say, but somebody has mentioned Jim McGuinness from time to time. May pass through Down at times that they're training, coincidentally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Conor Laverty and his backroom team have to get a lot of credit. Every time I've seen Down play this year, they've improved. And, even in the Ulster Championship, I know they were defeated against Armagh, but they've really kicked on since that. They played Meath in a Tailteann Cup game, 3 weeks ago at this stage. They were even impressive on that day, but they kicked a lot of wides. Their finishing was off. Their finishing was definitely not off today. They were just really impressive. And it was the energy they brought to it. I think, Laois, a lot more physical as a team. Some of their players were dwarfing the Down guys, but I think, there was a few instances there in the first half when you seen a Laois player get a ball and he couldn't even attempt to play the ball because there was 2 or 3 Down guys. They were just hopping off him, and it looked like under 14s hopping off a minor at times. There was that much of a size difference, but there was just so many of them, and the energy they were bringing to the tackle, just Laois couldn't cope with that, and they were stripping of a ball, and then the pace they brought to the attack was just it was a joy to watch. Liam Kerr, I know he got the hat-trick. Everybody will call him out, give him the plaudits for that, but I just thought he was a focal point for their attack. They were able to use him there at the edge of the D, at the edge of the square, to bounce balls off. That allowed them to get the runners off him. His handling was excellent. Gathered the ball, first touch, brilliant, and he was able to pop it off to runners coming at the angles. And I think Caleb Doherty as well, he was just so enjoyable to watch. Such a slight little figure, wearing number 6, but he was nearly like a Xavi or an Iniesta for Barcelona, and that was the type of football that Down played, kind of a tiki-taka, not to exaggerate, but it was that enjoyable, and the movement was that good, and you could tell it was just a great reflection how well coached they are.
And Down, they're not a big team. They're they have Owen Murdoch and that in midfield. Yes, he's a big lad in size, but other than that, they're quite a small team. Pat Haverin up front as well. But that's really it. But they really can hold their own in the physical challenge.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's not that they're noticeably a small team, but they've built a game plan that they're able to work around that, and it's energy and it's angles of running and the pace that they're doing it at. It counteracts anything they're lacking in height. They're making up for that with very intelligent movement and that pace that they're able to do that movement at. And I think what's also worth a mention from Down today was the quality of their handling, because conditions there in the first half today were terrible. There was thunder and lightning, there was a downpour of rain. Croke Park as well, it's such a good pitch, but it's so solid underfoot that when it rains like that, it can be very slippy on top, or if a ball hits the deck, it's gone. But Down didn't allow balls to hit the deck. They gathered everything first time. The hand passes were where they needed to be. When they moved the ball through the foot, it was in favour of the Down man. He was able to take it, maybe just one bounce. They just made everything, the guy on the ball made everything very easy for the guy receiving the ball. But I think it was that movement off the ball as well made it incredibly easy for the guys on the ball to make good decisions and to look creative, because they had so many options.
And one moment that I mentioned, or that I noticed, was when Laois got their first goal, just how Conor Laverty reacted to that. Down went on and they went up the field and scored straight away. They responded straight away, and you could see what it meant to him that the team did that. And at that point, that's their 8th goal. You could easily say, does it really matter? But to him, it obviously really did matter, and maybe that says a lot about him as a manager.
It says a lot about Conor Laverty as a manager, definitely, but I think it says a lot as well about the standards that he's created within that group, and even his body language on that. I think even to the subs sitting behind him in the stand, he's transmitting to them that that's not good enough. They're probably the only ones that can see that at that time, But when they go into training next Tuesday, next Wednesday night, that's the message that they have for the next 3 weeks, that even when we're that far ahead, those little slips in standard aren't good enough. And, you know, I think that was very impressive from Down today. The guys that came in, you could tell that the competition within that squad is very, very strong. And, you know, Down have got a lot of praise for allowing guys to go and play club football over the last few weeks. And you could tell that, you know, that even letting those guys go away and play club football is driving that competition within the squad. And you know, I know back to my time playing, the most disheartening time for some guys on the squad was often the time when there was the most games, you know, during that period of the league where you're playing games week after week after week, because the guys outside that first 18 to 19 felt that they didn't have opportunities to show that what they could do. So I guess with this condensed season, the fact there's league games and Down going on at the same time, guys feel they can go away and I guess they have an opportunity to express themselves and the training that they've done. They're not just professional trainers, they're footballers. It keeps their football sharp at another level. They come back happier because they've had an opportunity to play games, to reflect all the training they've done, and that creates a great buzz within a squad. Like, you know, I think when the April club month came in and you might have been kind of doing a mini pre-season at intercounty level a few years ago, it was probably the happiest time within a squad because everybody was training really hard during the week, going back playing a club game at the weekend, so everybody felt they were kind of in the one boat. And I think that's what Conor Laverty's done over the last number of weeks through the Tailteann Cup. Got his guys playing for Down, but also allowing the guys to go and play their club football as well and keep them happy.
Yeah, that's so important because it must be so disheartening to not be getting minutes when you're playing county football and you can't play for your club at the same time. And maybe sometimes, have you seen with players, they maybe went backwards a little bit because they're not getting the football? How do they improve if you're not getting game time?
Oh, undoubtedly, yeah. I've seen some brilliant footballers go back and actually struggle at club level because they literally have become professional trainers. And it's great. Like, you know, a lot of intercounty management now are introducing game scenarios and trying to play more football there. But it's not the same as like playing a competitive match. And you know, like, yeah, if you spend 6-7 weeks just training, not playing any competitive football, while the other guys in the panel are playing competitive games, you go backwards relative to them, but you also go backwards relative to the club players who are playing week on week on week. And then, you know, and it's actually heartbreaking at times to see it affect the confidence of some of those guys as well, because their confidence takes a hit. They're involved in a county squad and not playing games. Then they go back and play for their club and they're not as dominant at club level as they were before the intercounty season, or as dominant as they were in the previous season. So their confidence takes a double hit, and then they come back into county training and they're playing maybe worse than they were a week or two before that at county training, so they have even less chance of getting selected then. So it really is a vicious circle. So, you know, that's something Conor Laverty has managed brilliantly, but it's a poor reflection probably on the GA that we think it's remarkable that he's allowing his players to play games.
Yeah, that is true. I know he spoke about players that maybe aren't in the squad, and he said, but look, go play with your club on Friday night and see how you go, and then maybe you will be. You know, there's a real chance there for them that it's not just you're not in it, that's it. No, look, play with your club. If you have a good performance, you'll get in. And you know, he merits that if you do well. Yeah,
absolutely. And like we've seen with the way it's gone the last maybe decade or so, county squads have anywhere between 30 and 40 guys involved, like, and it's not practical to not have them playing games. And it shouldn't be notable that a manager is allowing his players to play games. You know, we see it in every other sport. You know, you see rugby players, you know, provinces releasing their players to play club games at the weekend. You know, what any manager wants is guys that are sharp, fit and ready to go, and that's what Down are achieving at the minute.
And we'll look at the final then, just quickly. How do you see it going, Down versus Meath? I'm from Meath, living Down, so this is a big one for me.
It's your derby, so I should be asking you that question, how it's going to go. Listen, it's funny. There's been a great cadence to the Tailteann Cup for the last number of weeks. You know, at worst, teams have had to wait 2 weeks. Now between the semi-final and the final we have a 3-week break, so it's probably just a little bit too long when the competitions has a little bit of momentum after the semi-finals today. But I guess they are waiting around to play it as a curtain raiser to one of the All-Ireland semi-finals. How is it going to go? The teams played already in the group stages of the Tailteann Cup. Meath got the victory that day, and even I remember remarking after that game that it was a very old style traditional Meath performance for about a 5-minute period at the end of the game where they dug it out and just got over the line. But also Down would have taken so much from that game. I forget their white count exactly, but it was probably in the mid-teens. They created so many opportunities that they didn't take, and even in those last 5 minutes there was a miss free. They really would have been kicking themselves. So I think both teams will have learned a lot from the last time they played each other. Meath will be very disappointed that they give them scoring chances. Down will be very disappointed they didn't take them. Meath today will be delighted with that first 15 minutes of their second half, and probably questioning how they allowed Antrim back into that game. And then Down will be questioning, what have we learned about ourselves today with such a comfortable victory? So it's going to be interesting how Colin O'Rourke and Conor Laverty balance the positives with the negatives. And you'd love to see the video session that the managing teams are going to put on for those two teams during the week, and how they try and frame the mindset of the players for the next 3 weeks.
Are you going to give us the name of who you think will take it?
Yeah, listen, Down, I was so impressed with him today. I really, really was. And, I just think even Conor Laverty, that Kilcoo experience, getting over the line in Croke Park, in All-Ireland finals. And I just think that maybe it mightn't be a replica of what we've seen today, but there's just a little bit of football intellect that he seems to have, that I think he can design a game plan to beat Meath with the Down team that he has at his disposal. Yeah,
I think Meath will have a big say as well. It's going to be a good game, a good Tailteann Cup final. That's what everyone wants. I think it's the two best teams are in the final. Yeah,
the two best teams are in the final. And encouragingly for the Tailteann Cup, I think was what Westmeath did over the last 6 weeks as well in the Sam Maguire round robin. I did, to be honest, have my worries about how it would reflect on the Tailteann Cup. Westmeath's performances in Division 3 this year were a little mixed, but Westmeath showed that Tailteann Cup winners can be competitive in Sam Maguire over the last 6 weeks. They're very unlucky they weren't playing a preliminary quarter final today, so that's a great validation for the Tailteann Cup. And I think for Down, and it's something I thought it could maybe just be the motivation that could get them over the line the next 3 weeks, is that we've seen Cavan get promoted from Division 3, and Cavan and Fermanagh get promoted from Division 3 this year, and the way the draws worked out, that wasn't enough to get them into the Sam Maguire competition. So Down will know, while they'll be targeting promotion next year, it won't guarantee them a Sam Maguire place, while winning the Tailteann Cup final in 3 weeks guarantees them that Sam Maguire place.
And Mickey Donnelly, who's obviously on the management team for Down, that's what he mentioned in the press conference, we're one game away from being in the Sam Maguire. So maybe that's the way teams are looking at it. It is a massive prize. They want to be up in the best competition.
Yeah, that's it. It's one game now for Down to get into Sam Maguire 2024, and they could easily win 7 games in next year's National League, go up as Division 3 champions, and if a certain number of Division 3 or Division 4 teams get to provincial finals, they could lose out on playing Sam Maguire football next year. So they'll want to make sure they don't end up in the position that Cavan and Fermanagh ended up in this year.
And it's one game away from Meath as well. Thanks, Neil. Thanks
you would say that.
Had to throw it in.